Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just getting going here, so it'll be a few minutes as people come in. But thanks for joining today. Thanks, everyone. We'll get started in a few minutes here as people are filing in, and appreciate your patience. So thanks, and you're in the right spot. So as we're waiting, as people want to people are filing in, if you want to just put in the chat, where you're coming in from. It's always interesting to see, who's represented. So go ahead and feel free to share that. Nice. So Phil, our international community is represented. They should make you feel good.
Excellent. Yep, always good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get going. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Tim Vlamis with Huron Consulting, your host for today's A&D TechCast. And we're going to have a brief introduction, and then we'll get to the main content with Phil Godfrey. So, I've been involved with AnDOUC and its predecessor, BWA, for, gosh, I guess about 16 years now. So, it's a great organization. And I'm particularly excited for today's topic because this is the space that I work in data visualization. So really pleased to welcome Phil Godfrey for Unlocking Insights, Mastering Data Storytelling with Oracle Analytics. After the presentation, we'll have a brief Q&A. What we want to let you know is this is part of a series. So our tech casts have been going for many, many years. And indeed, we have new ones coming up in the new year. So if you go to our website, andouc.org/techcast, on January 9th, we have Oracle AI Microservices Sandbox for RAG rapid prototyping with Corrado DeBari, Mark Nelson, and John Lutheri. So that should be a great session. And then another AI session, leveraging vector search for RAG and generative AI, presented by Kai Yu on January 23rd. And then there will be another, our favorite new features of OAC based on the new release in February 6th. So some exciting, TechCast coming up. We look forward to that. Let's go ahead and advance. Yep. So we have several ways to connect with AnDOUC. We have our website, andouc.org. We have a Slack channel that's very active that encourage everybody to join Slack and look us up there. The previous TechCast, as well as this one, will be put out on YouTube so that you can watch it. And then, of course, in social media, we have the usual suspects of X, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the spatial and graph SIG. And spatial and graph, you should know, is an important part of our community. Now, we do encourage everybody to, to submit their own topics for TechCast. So if you have, technical content to share, we have a special subcommittee that goes through those, abstract proposals, and we'll be in touch with you regarding that. We'll also have some, some links afterwards. So if you want to look things up. So this slide deck will be available, the recording will be available, and you'll have an opportunity to ask some questions. Phil, did you want to go through a little bit about the data visualization challenge? You want me to do that?
No, I can do that. That's fine, Tim. Yeah, so just one thing just to raise, if anyone isn't aware already, that Oracle Analytics have a data visualization challenge for 2025. This is recently open for registration. So registration began in December, and the challenge itself will be running throughout February. And it's your chance within the analytics community to you'll be provided with a data set, and you will be able to come up with all kinds of great ways to build content and then submit that to be reviewed by Oracle peers. I've signed up myself, so I encourage you all to do the same if you're interested.
Yeah, I've signed up for them in the past, and look forward to this one as well. Well, let me formally introduce our guest speaker today, Phil Godfrey. He's the principal data analytics and AI consultant with Vertice, and Phil has over 10 years of experience working with data across various. Oh, I forgot to talk about the conference coming up. Yeah, let me do that first. Sorry. So the Analytics and Data Summit is coming up in April 10th, 8th through 10th at the former Oracle headquarters, the Oracle Conference Center in Redwood Shores. It is a terrific event, and it's really nice to get, all the geeks together, if you will, and, do some deep dives. Great content and speakers, and a lot of opportunities to really, dig in. So look forward to meeting everybody and hanging out together there. With that, let me introduce Phil Godfrey, and just mention that he does have over 10 years experience working with data across various business sectors, including finance, HR, and healthcare. Data science, machine learning, and advanced analytics experience across roles in Vertice and NHS Business Services Authority. So you can ask him about consulting side as well as, business side. Phil is an Oracle ACE associate, and also I understand that he has a keen interest in photography, and it's a real passion of his. So Phil, we're really pleased to have you, and without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, Tim. Really appreciate that warm introduction, and thanks everyone for joining. It's great to be back at AnDOUC. This is probably my third or fourth TechCast now, but always enjoy doing them, and it's really great to share that knowledge with the community. So today I'm going to be talking to you about unlocking insights, so mastering data storytelling within Oracle Analytics. Tim's already introduced me, but I'm principal data analytics and AI consultant at Vertice. As he mentioned, I have a keen interest in photography outside of kind of work. That's one of my pictures that I've taken of Newcastle Tyne Bridge. And I've got a shameless plug for my Etsy page there if anyone is interested. A little bit about Vertice. So the tagline we've got there is Customer Data Solutions, which just talks about everything, all of our interest in everything that we place at the heart of what we do. In terms of what we do, I'm involved in data analytics and AI. And we've got some things on the screen there, but we also offer database and infrastructure. So all these, any kind of areas of interest where we might be able to help, then please feel free to reach out. But the aim of the session today is not really to talk about Vertice, but to talk about data storytelling and how we can do that in Oracle Analytics. So there's three key things I want to get across today. One is to explain, what is data storytelling for those of you that don't know already. I'm going to explain why it's important, and I'm also going to explain how Oracle Analytics can help. So one of the best places to start, if those of you who don't know, is to define what data storytelling is. And it's the art of transforming complex data sets into compelling narratives that resonate with audiences. It's nothing new, it's something that's been around for a long time. And it's really a case of how do we go from data in its purest form through to an exciting, compelling narrative that will kind of drive key insights to the audience that you're speaking to or presenting back to. And there's three components of data storytelling, or three pillars of data storytelling. Unsurprisingly, you'll have data at the beginning, followed by a narrative, and on top of that is the visualization. And across all of those, there are three key elements to always keep in mind. Accuracy, so making sure that the data you're working with is correct and is accurate. Keep in mind the context. So, what is it you're speaking to? Why is it important? And also to keep in mind the audience very much are at the forefront of what we want to do. So who we're speaking to or presenting back to will determine, potentially what data we'll use, especially how we're going to narrate that back and the story we're going to tell, and also in considering, their data literacy. So how familiar they are with certain visualizations. Some may or may not be appropriate. So keep all of that in mind, as we go through. So if we start with the first kind of pillar of data storytelling, the data. So it's the base of our story. It's the bedrock of what everything's built on. Data presented on its own rarely communicates meaning. It's just a lot of noise. So what we want to do as data storytellers is to gather accurate data from various types of research. It could be from a database, it could be from documents around the business, and we want to translate that into narrative and visualizations. On the narrative, think back to, I'm sure we've all written stories in the past, or certainly read them. And this is, the verbal written storyline. So we use data to communicate insights effectively. And if we think of, the process of how we do this, we start with the background on the data that we have. We're going to produce some insights, and we'll have that aha moment or the major finding, or this could be the golden nugget of, this is what we found and we're really excited to tell you, leading on to the solution and next steps. So what do we want our audience to take away? So from a business perspective, this might be, what problem are we trying to solve? What question are we trying to answer? What do we want the end users to do with that information? And the final piece is the visualizations. So this is the representation of that data and the narrative all combined in one. It's not just a case of creating charts for the sake of it. We also want to, be able to compel an audience with that. So we want to combine data and narrative to hopefully tell that story. We want to use these to help communicate a story more clearly. And visualizations could be anything. They could be graphs, charts, diagrams, videos, whatever is appropriate for the audience that we're speaking with. And I'm going to go back to my childhood at this point, and I'm going to go to Lego pieces. So everyone is probably familiar with Lego, and it actually translates really nicely to data and data storytelling. So we can start with a pile of Lego bricks. That is our data. At the moment, it's really messy, and there's not a great deal to it. We can sort them into piles, and so we can make piles of each color, add some more kind of familiarity with that. We can then arrange them. So we can arrange them by size. So which pieces do we have the most pieces of, and build them up that way. We can then present that visually. So imagine this is a histogram, and we've put them in order in terms of the size that we've got. And then ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to explain that with a story. So data storytelling is how we go from data at the top to the very end point of telling a story. So in this case, it's building a house. So what we have the data, which is our bedrock, hundreds of Lego pieces that are really messy, they're unordered. And we need to help, provide some arrangement to this to tell our narrative. The narrative is where we add in some order. So we understand our data a little bit better, and we can start to create that story. And the final point is the visualization. So in our point, it's a house. On this point, it's a graphic. But in business terms, this could be a dashboard, it could be a chart with a key takeaway. So that's the art of the data storytelling. So that's data storytelling in a nutshell. It's all well and good knowing what it is, but what I'm always keen to know is, why is it important? So I've got 5 key reasons of why data storytelling is important. On its own, data rarely communicates meaning for itself. But on the left-hand side, we've got a chunk of JSON, which to some people it might be familiar, to other people it might be complete nonsense. It doesn't really communicate anything on its own. Data and narrative are the sweet talkers for change. So on the left-hand side here, we've got data. So these are our patterns and opportunities that we can find in a data set. On the right-hand side is the storytelling, so where we move kind of people to action. So that's like the narrative. But really where we want to be is this sweet spot in the middle. So we kind of identify a problem and drive towards a resolution in the middle. Point number 3 is that data stories help to emphasize key insights. So this is the aha moment or the golden nugget of information. So we want to highlight anything that's important for our audience to understand. And we want to make sure that they stand out and resonate with the audience as well. Number 4 is that it helps foster information retention. So what we want to do is, produce data stories that are memorable and they stick with you. And it aids long-term retention of information. If we go back to a few slides ago where we mentioned the Lego bricks, if you can remember that, then I've done a good job in telling that data story, and that information is stuck with you and hopefully will stick with you for a long time following this presentation. The 5th and final point of why data storytelling is important is data storytelling complement automated, augmented insights. So this is things like streamlined AI, automation and machine learning capabilities. And this circles back really nicely to the presentation today, because we'll be talking Oracle Analytics, which has embedded and built-in automated augmented insights. So Oracle Analytics, for those who aren't familiar, is an end-to-end analytic solution. It helps with the streamlining of process where we go from raw data, we can enrich that data set, produce our visualizations, and then we can create engaging data storytelling. And what I'm going to do is take you through a few elements of Oracle Analytics that can help tell that data story. So I'm just going to kind of summarize the data set that we're going to use today. It's Disneyland review data. So I'm presuming most people are familiar with Disneyland. What this is just a lot of review data where people have been, submitted, how they found the experience and presented that back. It's freely available, which is my favorite type of data set. And I've got a link included in the presentation where you can download that. So let's jump in. So we're going to start with our first pillar of data storytelling, the data. So we've just found out what the data set is, but we're going to go and explore it in a little bit more detail. And to start off, we're going to use data recommendations. Now, this is a built-in data prep feature of Oracle Analytics, and it provides a lot of information that can help enrich our data set. So this is where we provide additional information or features that help tell our data storytelling. And what I'm going to do is I've got a little video here. So what we're going to do is we're going to load in our data set. So the data set itself is a CSV file. So we're going to go to the data tab, we're going to click create, and we're going to create a data set here. If we're working from a local subject area, we could select that at this point, but because it's a CSV, we're just going to go and load that in. So we'll just select that file. It's uploading the data, and there we have it. So we've got a few fields here. We've got the review ID, the rating, the year, month it was from, the location of the reviewer, and the review text. All of that we can see in a nice new preview on the screen. So we're just going to give the data set a name at this point. So we're going to call it review demo data. And we're just going to click OK. Now, under the hood, what this is doing is it's doing a deep profile of the data set that we've loaded in. And within Oracle Analytics, it gives us a number of recommendations that we can apply to that data set. And that is the view here. On the right-hand side, we can see a number of recommendations. So we've got 20 recommendations here. If we want to add something in, we can just click it, and it will just add in this here. So we're going to add in the reviewer location, and we're going to add in the currency. There's various different things that you can add in, at this point, and it will change depending on the data set that you pass into it. And we can just add in, whatever we're interested in, various different fields that we've got in here. And it's as easy as that in terms of enriching that data. Okay, so then we're going to save that. And I suppose what you can do as well is you can step through all of these enrichments. So we can add and remove them if we want to. Once we're happy, we can save that data set. This is our kind of enriched data set, if you imagine. We're going to go ahead and save that here. There we go. Perfect. So that's saved. Now, data prep itself can be iterative. It's not, it's not a case of you do it once and that's it. In some cases it might be, but you might decide once you've come back to it, I could actually add something else when I've gone away and thought about it. So what we can do, we can jump back into the data prep stage. So these are the steps that we've added in already. We might want to add in something additional. So as an example, we've got year, month here. We might want to split that out. So we can split the year and the month into separate columns. So we can add those in. What we can do at this point is we can rename these columns. So it's very flexible in terms of what we do. You might want to call it 1 month, and we'll call this column, we'll quickly rename that. But you can see how easy it is to just come in, tailor your data set to what you think you might need in terms of telling a data story, and then going from there. And it's as simple as that. The next feature that is built in to Oracle Analytics is data flow. Now, data flows are really helpful in terms of data preparation steps. And what you can do, there's all kinds of things that you can do, and I'll walk you through an example shortly. It provides you with an option to filter your data. You can link it to other data sets if you have them. And there's also some embedded machine learning in there as well. So I'll just quickly walk through this demo. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with the data set that we just created. So we're just going to pick that there and add that in. There we go. That's our base data set. Now imagine this as a full pipeline of what we then want to do to our data set. So when we click the plus sign, there's various different things we can do. If we had additional data, we could add that, or we could filter based on whatever we want. What we're going to do at this stage is select some certain columns. So say we've gone through the data prep stage and we might want to actually remove currency abbreviation. If we click that little minus, it's going to take that out and remove selected. There we go. So it's taken that out of our data flow. If we were happy with that, we can then move on to the next stage. And we're going to use analyze sentiment. So because we're working with review data, analyzing sentiment could be really useful. So this is whether the text is positive, negative, or neutral. So we can give that a column name. We're going to tell it to use the review text because that's our text that we want it to analyze. And we're just going to add in another step to save that data. So we're going to give that a name. Call it demo data set. Enriched because we've added an additional enriched column here, which is our sentiment or our emotion. And we can see it's added that in straight away. So there we go. That's saved and it's a brand new data set and we've worked through a data flow. You can rerun data flows as well. It's not a one-off exercise. So it's something that can be done, on a repeatable basis. On to the narrative. So this is the second pillar of our data storytelling approach. And Oracle Analytics also has another built-in function. So this is starting to use augmented analytics, and this is the explain function. It does very much what it says on the tin. It helps explain the data fields that we pass into it. Out of the box, it provides us with various bits of information. It gives us some basic stats. Think of these as summary statistics or key insights. It has some key drivers. So what are the most important features of that column? If there's any segments or any clusters that appear of interest or any anomalies. So these are your outliers, the kind of the edge cases of, what might be interesting. And all of these things feed in potentially to our data story. So just a little demo of the explain plan. So we come from our data prep stage. If we just create a workbook, we're going to dive straight in and we're going to take the rating column. This is the rating given by the user. And we've got here straight away some basic facts about rating, which may or may not be useful. It's got ratings by year, month. It's a kind of key distribution of what our data looks like. And if we wanted to add them into our canvas, we can just click that little green plus sign. If we want to add this in, that's quite interesting. We'll have a look at the anomalies. Okay, we've got some anomalies there, so we might want to add that in as well. That's quite interesting. So we'll tick that little box at the top there. And if we want to add all three, we'll just click Add Selected, and there it is, straight in the canvas. And we can start to, I suppose, tell that data story just from using some inbuilt machine learning from within Oracle Analytics. On to the visualization element. Another built-in feature is something called Auto Insights. Auto Insights is a little bit similar to Explain, but out of the box, it does a lot of pre-built machine learning and profiling techniques to identify interesting insights from your data set. You can identify it from here, this little light bulb. Once it turns yellow, it means your insights are ready. And the beauty of this is it runs every time you make a change to your data set. So if we went back to the data prep stage and went and added in a couple of different fields, this would then rerun every time we come back into a notebook. One of the things I really like about it is you can add multiple visualizations to your canvas, and you can drag and drop them wherever you want. But also, there is something called Auto Insight Settings. Now, this is perfect when we think about data storytelling, because if we want to consider our audience, we might want to tailor this based on their data profile, how proficient they are in data analytics. So there might be certain charts or fields that will be of interest to them, and we can tailor that through Auto Insights. And I'll show a little demo of working with that now. So what we're going to do is we can see Auto Insights is ran because that light bulb is yellow. So we're going to click that there. And it's found some insights for us based on our data set that we have. So we've got a box plot there. We've got a donut chart. It looks like that's still loading. So we'll just give that a second. And again, if we wanted to add these in, if we click the little plus symbol next to that, it'll add that straight into the canvas. What we'll do is we'll scroll down. We'll add that box plot in. Looks quite interesting. Of review a location. And we can add that in. We'll just scroll down and see what else we've got in here. We've got, that's quite interesting. Now we've got the top 10 reviewer location. Yep, we can add that in. And again, if we wanted to change that, we can drag and drop that to wherever we want. There we go. Now, box plots are quite complicated. For me as a data scientist, I'm familiar with them, but I know a lot of people aren't. So I could come into here and I could toggle off box plots. For the audience that I want to produce this story for, it's not relevant, so I can just remove that. And if I click apply, Auto Insights will refresh, and you will see that there are no longer any box plots there. So it's already helping to tailor us to tell that data story that we want to, which is perfect. Now, I often use Auto Insights as a starting point, so you can absolutely make amendments to these. So say we wanted to bring in an additional field, say like review a location. If we want to drag that in to that donut chart, we could put it in as a column. And we can see for each country, we have our spread of our 80-20 for rating for all the different countries in our data set. So that's just a really quick example of how you can go from nothing to starting to tell a data story very, very quickly. You can also work with custom calculations. So as I mentioned in the last slide, as well as tailoring the visualization, you can completely tailor any custom calculations that are fed in from Auto Insights. So that's really helpful in terms of a tool to get you going. Now, there's a couple of elements within Oracle Analytics that actually touch on both narrative and visualization. And one of those is language narrative. So again, this is using machine learning and artificial intelligence. And what this does is it leverages those two to transform a data insight into understandable written explanations of what that data set is telling you. Now, this is perfect for, I suppose, if you wanted to present this information back, rather than just giving a chart, you could put something next to it, which helps explain that in simple terms, what the chart is telling you. So it's really useful in terms of an option to have in your armory for a data storytelling session. Some key points to bear in mind. There is a sliding scale from 1 to 7. So 1 is your highest level. Could be appropriate for something like a chief exec. where they just want short, snappy, high-level information. Whereas if you're working with another analyst, you could go down to level 7, which is the lowest level of detail. So you get, very granular, fine-grained detail in there. There are 2 options in terms of the analysis you want to do. You could either do a trend or a breakdown, and either of those might be appropriate depending on your audience. And the same for the language selection. At the moment, there are 2 languages available, either English or French. So just to show you language narrative, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a simple chart. So we're going to look at ratings by year month. So we're going to drag that onto the screen here. That looks good. So we've got number of reviews by year month. We're just going to add in a title to give this an appropriate name. So these are total reviews by month. And we're going to change the title size just to increase that. So these are all kind of little fine nuances that you might want to tailor with to help tell your data story. So we're just going to duplicate that visualization and we're going to change this to be language narrative. So what we want this to do is we want this chart on the left-hand side to be explained by our language narrative. And it's as simple as that. There we go. So this tells us data represents a rating for the following year months, and it tells us which one's the most important and which one's the least important. If we wanted to change that, we could change it from a breakdown to trend if we wanted to. So if we just click trend, we'll get a different insight. So this has been produced on the fly. I mentioned that sliding scale of detail. Depending on your audience, you can tailor that to whatever you want it to be. And you could go as fine-grained as you want. So always keep in mind, I suppose, the audience that you're presenting to when tailoring this here. So all of it's kind of really useful. One thing that's been recently introduced as generally available is something called AI Assistant. I feel like this is kind of like an extension to Auto Insights, but it involves natural language. So imagine we're in the Auto Insights tab, it's on that next to it. What I can do as an analyst is to type the question that I'd like Oracle Analytics to provide for me. So I could say, show me a histogram of reviewers by location and give me an average rating, and it would produce that chart for me. So it's bridging the gap from me dragging and dropping the fields that I'm interested in to Oracle Analytics doing that for me. And I've got a really nice video to demonstrate that, which I've linked at the end of the slides. So feel free to watch that back when you can. So, and just a quick recap. So how to tell a great data story. First of all, we're going to determine what question you want to be answered. In our case, we want to understand reviewers' feelings of Disneyland. We need to determine what data is needed to answer the question. Well, we've got our data set, so that's fine. And we've got the review data. We've identified our data source because we've downloaded that already. Determine our visualization options. Well, Auto Insights has helped with that, but we'll take that a little bit further shortly. And then we want to construct the narrative. So how do we combine telling that data story with a narrative and visualizations? And we're going to go and do that now. So Oracle Analytics for interactive data storytelling. We have our raw data. So we've put some fields in here, really plain and simple. It doesn't really tell us a great deal, which is exactly what we said before. We can then sort and arrange our data. So we can do that in Oracle Analytics. So what we're doing here is just sorting from high to low or low to high. So we have sentiment, year, month, and number of reviews. All so far, so good. We can then present it visually or visualize our data. So say we start from Auto Insights, might have identified a donut chart. We can take that one step further and color code it based on our sentiment. So where something is positive, we can make it green. Where something is negative, we can make it red. And where something is neutral, we can make it orange. And then finally, we can add in some formatting. So we can highlight the key insights that we want to identify and also add in a title. So this title helps explain what this chart is telling us. So how do our customers feel about our park? It's a really, a really easy way to understand how we go from visualization to telling a data story relatively quickly with minimal changes. But we can do better than that. So we've gone through our data process, we've sorted our data, we've arranged it, we've presented it visually, and we're trying to explain it with a story. So we're going to do that now. So explain with a story. So how do our customers feel about our park? We can see that 66% are positive about Disneyland, which is always good. And we can split out the review data into a word cloud to understand, what do our customers tell us? And we can see, they're positive about Disneyland. So it's a positive place. That's good to know. They're positive about the park, rides, certain things like that. So we can pick out some insights, straight away, which is really helpful. Looking at the negatives, we can see we've got around 33% are quite negative about Disneyland in their review. And again, we can highlight what they're negative about. So they're negative about the rides. So this could be something like the queue time was too long, or they were down for maintenance for too long. And we can get some kind of key insights from here. And in terms of those that are neutral, we can understand, why they're neutral. Is there anything that they can tell us? So food is neutral. It might be that, it was okay, but nothing special. Attractions. So there might be a need for additional attractions to be put in to make it a bit more compelling. But that's fine, but we can tailor that. So when we think about our audience and think about our narrative, there's slight changes that we can make that make a big impact to our data story overall. A couple of things to keep in mind. In terms of visualizations, only give the key points. Everything else is just background noise. So if we take the chart on the left-hand side, we've got a number of products by revenue. It looks quite messy. You can pick out some kind of key points, but it's a little bit confusing. On the right-hand side, we're only interested in 4 products, so only show 4 products. We can get a much clearer indication of what is going on by removing what's unnecessary. And it helps make our data stories easy to follow as possible. Keep the audience at the forefront. So this is tailoring your message based on your audience's knowledge, their interests, and what they need. So as an example, this chart here on the right-hand side, it's got a couple of KPIs. So we've got total customers, total orders, and we've got orders versus customer distribution by city. This would be really great for a sales manager because we've got our KPIs, we've got an understanding of distribution. It's not so good for the data scientist who is the sales specialist. They might want to see, box plots. They might want to see clusters. So if there are any, correlations between customers and where they're ordering from in the city, and they'd be able to do that. So it's considering the audience who you're presenting to at all times. Keep them at the forefront. And in terms of narrative and visualizations, you can absolutely combine the two, and I would implore you to do that. And what we can do here, so as an example, we've removed any distracting information by colors. So highlighted the product C because that's the one we're interested in. But what we've also done is included a summary of the key insight that I want you to take away. Revenue grew 94% over the past 8 months. Perfect. I've got my key message. Nothing else is confusing me, and it helps explain our data story and our key points. So with all of that in mind, we're going to jump back to our data storytelling of our Disneyland review data. And we've made some slight changes that make a big difference. So what we've done here, we've removed any distractors. We've only got our green here. So we know we're looking at positive information. Everything else is grey because it's irrelevant based on this graphic. What we've also done is percentages and big numbers can be particularly confusing. It's difficult to convey that message. So what we've done is we've translated that into something relatable. So this title at the top, 6 in 10 customers enjoy our theme park, which is true. It's nearly 7 in 10, and hopefully we could get it there. And on the right-hand side, what we've done is we've highlighted the most important key points. So remove any of the distractors, and we've identified those things that are most enjoyable. And that is Disneyland itself, the park, could be that it's really clean. Food is really good. Experience. So they're all positive things that we can take away from that. In terms of the negatives, Again, we've tailored that to only focus on the negative, and we've made that relative to people so we can understand it. So 3 in 10 customers think we can improve. And then what we've done, on the right hand side, even in the title, what do our customers want us to improve? So it's kind of building that emotive response. So what can we do to better improve our customer experience? And there's some various things that we can look at. So we've got lines, could be a problem. It might be that they're queuing for too long, which is where this fast pass comes in. So we can, you start to draw these call to action in terms of what we can do to make those changes to help improve that experience. And even the ones who are neutral, 1% of our customers are neutral, which we've identified in that really small sliver on the left-hand side. But even with the language that we've used on the right-hand side, what opportunities do we have to improve customer experience? It's not a case of, those are indifferent, so they're just like, oh, we won't really bother with them. Is what opportunities? So how do we make them go from sitting on the fence to potentially being really positive about the park? And we can pick some kind of key points from here. So in terms of the wait times, our opportunities to improve the queues, our opportunities to improve. And we've got some really key things that we can take away from that as, the owners of Disneyland in this example. For those that aren't as comfortable presenting back, there are AI avatars which have recently been introduced. And these are a combination of Oracle Analytics and Synthesia. And what this is an AI avatar which is there to kind of tell your data story for you. And it's really quite nice. It's quite a cool way to present your data back. And I've got a link to that at the end of the slide deck if anyone wants to see more information about AI avatars. And some top tips just to keep in mind is always try and conclude with a clear call to action. So on the last slide, we had some points where Disneyland could improve their experience, and we've got some key things for the senior management to potentially look at based on the customer reviews. And it really just encourages them to act based on the insights gained from the data story. With that in mind, you'll have probably noticed one earlier on in the presentation, what Tim introduced. There is a call to action for the TechCast series. So if you've enjoyed this talk and want to keep in touch with what is coming up in the future, there is a link for you to stay updated on our TechCasts, which takes you to a sign up to stay in touch. So that is a clear kind of call to action, but makes it relevant based on the data story that we want to tell. We also have very much the same with the Oracle Analytics Data Visualization Challenge. So if anyone is interested in signing up for that, hopefully this has whet your appetite for Oracle Analytics and what it can do. If you want to, put that to the test, feel free to register. Registration is open now, and the challenge itself starts in February next year. And just to sum up at the end of the presentation, data storytelling is absolutely a skill that you can master. I don't profess to be a master of it myself. I think everyone can always learn more, so I always encourage you to do that. Hopefully this talk has helped to provide some knowledge of how you can tell effective data stories. And I've shown you a number of ways in which Oracle Analytics can help provide a suite of tools to help you tell that effective data story. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so we had a couple questions come in, and we thought we may be able to address them. The first one is, we got this a while ago when you were building the data set and enhancing it. How do you drill into data via data hierarchies? And I have ideas on how to address that. I didn't know if you did as well, but
you could set it up. It depends. In Oracle Analytics, you could, in the underlying data model, you could set it up as an RPD if you wanted to, where you define, the kind of drill action of how you want to drill down through data. It's particularly useful for things like time dimensions as well, if you wanted to drill into that. But even from the data recommendation side of things, that actually explodes things like that for you. So it will take a date, as that point, and it will explode all that out for you. So you'll go from a timestamp out to a year, to a month, to a
Yep.
week, to a quarter, and all of that is at your fingertips and really easy to kind of build that up. So you can absolutely do that, yeah. But if you wanted to build something yourself, you could do that in the data prep stage or the data flow stage as well.
Yeah, so I believe part of the answer is the cross drill from attribute to attribute is available as a part of the interface when you're in a canvas. So you can do these cross drills and it programmatically filters it. And then
Yeah,
if you're working in a subject area where you've defined a hierarchy for an attribute, you also have an option to drill down into that hierarchy. But that requires kind of setting it up in advance. And Phil's right, we do get date hierarchies and other things kind of for free from the application. So we also had a question. How do you balance the needs of a clear story that includes specifics, i.e., customer title 6 in 10 customers enjoy our theme park, with realities of an application that changes every month or every day? So next month, it may be only 5 in 10 or 7 in 10 enjoy.
yeah,
Suddenly, the title is wrong.
yeah. So one thing that's kind of really helpful for that is you could even build in kind of custom calculations which compares, this month. Say you were working with monthly data,
Mhm.
you could build it so it compares this month to last month. So you could, build something out which says that we've had an increase of, you know, 1 in 10 customers. We've gone from 6 in 10 to 7 in 10 this
Mhm.
month versus last month. You could do that. And I suppose, depending on if you were looking to do this iteratively and kind of carry on to do that, you could build that out to be as appropriate for what you need to. So I know you can certainly do things dynamically like that, which could help.
Yeah, we also can, I believe, add parameters now. And so we could, you know, do a case statement and say when it's, between this range, it's most, or this range, it's, nearly all or whatever, and put that in programmatically as a
Yeah,
parameter value in the
yeah,
title. So there are a
mhm,
lot of, I mean, it's a pretty powerful tool, a lot of ways to use it. And it's a good question. Um, ideally you're engaging with your with the content you build and you update it. So that's the other thing.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Other questions that people have? I think let's see. I expect the content can be emailed. Thanks. Yeah, so yeah. So um we'll have it available on AnDOUC. So and the excuse me, YouTube channel. So check back. Pardon. We have links for some of the content. Thanks, Phil, for helping with those. And with that, if we don't have any more questions, we'll encourage you to join us, next month for a couple great presentations on AI RAG, and we'll wish you happy holidays, and thank you everyone very much for joining, and we hope to see you at the summit, the Analytics and Data Summit 2025, April 8th through 10th. So registration is open, and please join us. Again, thanks, Phil, and everyone have a good day.
Thanks very much.